Hello, I'm Philippe Heller with the Real Estate Inspection Company, and I am here today with Octavio Jara from Potlatch Benefits. I wanted to share some tips on how you can, as a small company owner, add healthcare benefits. I know that we went for a long time just kind of relying on some of our employees getting it through a spouse or, perhaps going through Covered California and getting their own plan. And we were just more worried about, what we could pay and just trying to kind of pay enough where that was kind of dealt with by the employees. But what we found after all these years is it's actually not that unaffordable when you really look at what the company has to pay for it and some other benefits of having that as part of your plan. So Octavio, I'm going to hand it over to you and just maybe introduce yourself and we'll get into the details.
Sure. My name is Octavio Jara with Potlatch Benefits. I've been a health insurance broker for 23 years, specifically helping small groups like Philippe's that are brand new to setting up benefits, setting up their first benefits package and don't know where to start, and possibly are worried about getting sold something that doesn't make sense, is too expensive, their employees don't like. And I really try to make my superpower education, empowerment, so that Philippe was able to make a decision based on knowledge instead of hope of what these benefits were going to do.
Yeah, and what I appreciate about what you did as a broker is that you can compare a lot of different plans from a lot of different providers. If you just call one company and they're just going to give you their plans, it's a little bit, you just don't feel like you're getting the whole story. So that's one of the great things that really made us feel comfortable was that you were able to lay out very clearly what each plan would be. So yeah, that's one of the things that was very intimidating about, once we do this, is everyone going to like it? Is everyone going to participate? Like what's the upside? What's the downside? And so why don't, if you don't mind letting everybody know, like, what are the participation levels? Like, how does that all work? If somebody has a company of 5 or 10 or 20 employees and they're just thinking about it, right, and they're thinking in their heads, oh, it's going to cost me, thousands and thousands of dollars every month. Why don't you lay out what that might look like?
So let's just to make the math easy, let's use an example of a company with 10 employees, right? So one of the first requirements that an employer has to meet is that the employer is going to agree to pay at least 50% of the employee cost for a plan, all right? So it could be a bronze plan, silver plan, wherever you want, but one of the requirements is that at least 50% of the employee cost is covered by the employer. Another requirement is the participation requirement. Of these 10 employees, the carrier is going to want anywhere from 65 to 75% of the employees to enroll in coverage. Okay, so that means about seven of these 10 employees need to enroll in coverage. Now, if any of these 10 employees have group coverage through a spouse, they go out of the count completely. So any employee with group coverage somewhere else, it's the remaining number that they would need that requisite enrollment, that percentage. And again, that varies from carrier to carrier.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that they can't participate in your plan, right? If their spouse happens to have one, it just means it goes towards the participation number that you need, or to basically lowers the amount of employees that you would need to participate.
Exactly right. And basically, so all the rates are age-based, and that 50%, we can kind of find a plan that is going to fit whatever budget makes sense. If I'm talking to an employer that is doing kind of what you did, where letting people figure out their own options, or hopefully they have something else, but in offering coverage, your employees now appreciate you as an employer a little more because you've taken the extra step of giving them something that's important to them.
Yeah, and just touching on the cost a little bit. So the basic participation, just to be clear, is the company has to commit to paying 50% of some level of plan, at least a bronze plan. So you will lay out for them, you'll do a census of their company, get everybody's age, gender, can you say that anymore? Whatever, you have to What do you need? You need the birthday.
The rates are just based on age these days in California, I should
Okay,
say.
just age. And so you will lay it out and say, okay, we'll do a census. Here are the people that want to participate. Here's their age. And then you'll lay out like what all the different plans would be going up and down too. So, you'll start with the bronze plan so people can see what the minimum is that they have to pay. That would be the base minimum. But then you go up into the silver and gold and even platinum plans if you want. And like for us, I'll share that we chose to go with a gold plan, and that's what we were going to base our participation on. And so if somebody wanted to downgrade, let's say they're young and they hardly ever go to the doctor and they just want like basic levels of insurance, instead of a company paying 50%, if they downgrade to a cheaper plan, we're going to end up paying effectively more than 50%, maybe even 100%. Conversely, if they choose to upgrade to a platinum plan, more expensive, effectively we would be paying less than 50%, but our commitment was that 50% of the gold plan, and then they can go up and down it. Okay.
Exactly. So by giving employees choice, you can let them decide how much more or less they're willing to pay based on how much better or worse coverage they might need, right? Like you said, a younger person, a silver, less expensive plan is going to be more attractive because they're not anticipating going to the doctor anytime soon. But at the end of the day, you as a company are setting your percentage on 50% of a better plan, which looks better when it's being conveyed to employees. But to your point about even if it was an employer that was paying 50% of a bronze plan, that's still better than somebody going out to the open market and paying 100% of a bronze plan using post-tax dollars, right? Because any cost to employees is taken on a pre-tax basis and therefore reducing their taxable income. So
yeah, that's huge.
It can make sense.
Yeah, and as a benefit from the company's perspective, the companies also, these are obviously it's an expense, so you can write it off. But as you move forward and you add this benefit, there are no payroll taxes that you're paying on this benefit. So if it came down to just trying to, give somebody money, I hear a lot of colleagues say, well, we're just going to give everyone a, $500 a month kind of bonus to cover whatever. But that's you're paying payroll taxes on that money. And then the employee is also paying income tax on that money. So the net is much less than $500 that they have to go spend. And as you said, 100% of their own plan. So it's really not, it sounds great. And it's very easy to say, I'm going to give you $500. And if you do that, let me just caution you that you have to do it with everybody. You can't pick and choose who gets that, right? Okay. So it is, there are some tax advantages on both sides.
Right. So any employer, like if you do know an employer, oh, I'm just giving them $500, it is kind of a waste because it's not a deduction to the company. It is taxable all over the place. And at $500, they're probably already paying more than 50% of a silver, maybe a gold level plan, depending on the age of the group. So yes, it would be more cost effective too. Let's offer group benefits, medical, dental, vision, whatever you want. And, maybe the cost will still be $500, but there's also an offset from the taxes.
Right. Now, let's touch on family members. How much of a commitment does because, some company owners might think, oh, wow, what if I hire somebody and they have 4 or 5 kids and how does that work?
So there is no requirement when it comes to dependent cost. So most employers, I'd say at least half of the employers that I work with don't pay anything towards the cost of dependents. The ones that, I do have a small number that pay 100%, but that's rare for a company to do that. Nevertheless, it still might make sense for an employee to add a dependent to coverage because, again, they would be using pre-tax dollars to pay those costs, which might be comparable to what they're paying for individual coverage.
Yeah, and it also gives you the ability to get into offering this as a benefit relatively inexpensively and then moving up because you can always increase your contribution percentage or add family member coverage as you move forward, which is, something we plan on doing as, the company grows is, we're looking at increasing our contribution for that. So there are a lot of options there. And one of the things I'd like to share that we found, first of all, you're a great resource, and I know all the team members who signed up really appreciate you. And that's another one of your the benefit of working with someone like you is that they have someone to call, and it's not the hospital, it's not some big corporation. They can call you and run through all the different plans. You don't mind that, do you?
No, that is actually my favorite part, because step one is always working with yourself, the employer, to determine, all right, what are we going to offer and how much are we going to pay for, right? Once I know that, then that'll be something that's conveyed to the employees. And yeah, I welcome to have individual conversation with anyone considering their coverage versus what they might currently have. And at that point, it's that's where my other superpower comes in, which is making this stuff easy to understand, right? My ability to convey this information, like my favorite conversation to have is when someone calls me and says, I hate insurance, I hate dealing with that, I don't understand any of it, it's no good, I hate it, I don't understand why or what we need, and then have that 20-minute conversation with someone, and at the end have them call me a legend, a rock star, because they have finally taken the time or spoken with someone that educated them on what some of these terms mean that confuse just about everybody when it comes to health insurance. So yeah, that is a point of pride that I can do that for people.
Yeah, I can understand the numbers, but when people started asking me about, well, what plan should I pick, that's way over my head. So I definitely appreciate it. Well, one of the cool things that we discovered as well since offering this is that having a robust benefits package when you are recruiting new team members is actually as important, if not more, than the bottom line salary. For many years, we just went, hey, let's see if we can pay people as much as we can. And then people started asking more and more about, well, what kind of benefits do you offer? And especially if you're trying to recruit them from a big company, it's very tough to do if you don't offer any kind of benefit package. Yes, people like working for a small company because there's some flexibility and, it's not corporate, crazy corporate culture. But when you start including a nice benefits package, you will see that your competitiveness increases when you are trying to recruit talent, especially from big companies. It's almost as important, if not more, to some people to have a benefits package than simply just a higher wage. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons we've taken away from this as we go through and evolve and create more benefits for people. We recently added dental and vision. So why don't you just touch on that, how you can build on the benefits?
Sure. I mean, to your point, benefits are, I'd say, number 3 in what people ask about when they are looking at a new potential job, right? Number 1, obviously, is the opportunity. Is this something I want to do next? Number 2 is the pay. And number 3 is typically, do you offer benefits, especially if they're coming from any other job that does offer benefits? Mm-hmm. It's nice to have something competitive or better. I'm thinking of one of your recent new hires where we were able to take them from a bronze level plan to a gold level plan at less cost because of your generous contribution structure. And yeah, once you kind of get the feel of that, adding something like the dental plan that you offered and vision, now you're just reeling in more and more people, because medical, everybody realizes that's a necessity. And hopefully it's not one that people need to use. But dental is something people want because they want to get their teeth cleaned and their fillings done. And that's something that's a little, even though it's much less expensive than dental, some people consider it more of a luxury insurance because that's one they're hoping to use and have something paying towards, and vision as well, right? You mentioned these are all inspectors. We should make sure they have good eyesight and glasses if they need them. I mean, it makes sense on so many levels.
Yeah, we're going to add hearing insurance next. No. They listen just fine. Now, what else is there? Like accidental type policies? I mean, we all carry workers' comp, or we all should be carrying workers' comp, especially in California. But what, and I wanted to preface that, we're in California, so if people are watching this from outside of California, your state requirement levels that we discussed may be different. So make sure you check. Octavio's licensed in the state of California and Washington, right? State?
Washington. Yes.
Yeah. So he knows the rules there, but you'd want to ask somebody who's licensed in your state for what those minimum kind of contributions would be. But what about in addition to workers' comp, there's some accidental type stuff that covers people outside of work?
So basically, when it comes to filling out the benefits for a company like yourself, right? We started with medical because that was obviously the most important that people would need. Adding dental and vision. Beyond that would be adding something like a life insurance benefit. Most employers do a flat 50,000, flat 100,000, or multiples of salary, and that usually includes accidental death and dismemberment coverage. Not a fun topic to discuss. I usually tell employees this is the coverage to try not to use, but be thankful that your employer offers it. And then beyond that, it becomes disability coverage, short-term and long-term disability. I call those coverages paycheck insurance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're unable to produce an income due to a disability, these benefits kick in and pay you a salary, a percentage of your income. And the life and disability benefits are usually incredibly affordable, a lot more affordable than someone going out and getting an individual policy. Buying it under an employer plan is very cost effective and appreciated by employees.
Yeah, and even if you have a safe work environment and control, what your people are doing,
right.
Employees do crazy stuff like we all do on their time off, and
right.
They may get hurt. If it's riding motorcycles or skiing or whatever they're doing, people get hurt outside of work, and
right.
they don't get workers' comp will not cover them if they do get hurt outside of work. So it is something that you can provide some. Sorry about that noise there. You can provide some level of kind of a safety net for them should they get injured outside of work and not be able to work for weeks or even months. That's a really nice thing to offer. Excuse me. All right, I don't want to take your whole day, but I do want to encourage people to if you've been thinking about it, or even if you're just like hard, your mind's made up that I can't afford this, I would recommend talk to Octavio or someone like him to just get some numbers, get started. It's not a commitment. You're not gonna, we talked for months before we actually, pulled the trigger on it because we had so much going on, but he can start laying out a matrix of all the different costs and programs that are out there. And we're going to build onto this with the different, coverages that we can get. Because again, I think it's just such a strong negotiating point when we're trying to recruit, and our existing employees really appreciate it. And so we're all in. I'm a big believer in this. I think it makes our company that much stronger and better, and people, will want to stay working for us because we have that. So, any last words?
Let me just make one. You were saying getting a quote, right? What I always tell my client or potential clients, getting a quote is free. And until you see those numbers, as far as this costs $1 million a month, right? So it's actually getting concrete numbers that you can start to talk about. All right, maybe we can afford this. Maybe we can look at silver versus bronze, or gold versus silver. But getting concrete numbers is a good starting point for getting benefits.
All right, fantastic. Well, I want to thank you, and I hope everyone takes this to heart and reaches out to you, or just at least starts investigating getting coverages for your team. I've put Octavio's contact information on the screen. Phone number is 415-531-8313, and Octavio@potlatchbenefits.com.
There's an E missing in my email address. Between Potlatch has an E at the end. So phone number would probably be good for now. But yeah, and I've got a website, all that stuff. But there you go, perfect. Philippe, as you know, I love talking about this stuff. I love helping people figure out whether or not it makes sense to add benefits. If it doesn't, people will get the honest answer that it doesn't make sense, it's not going to fit the budget, because I'd rather not jam something in that isn't going to last 6 months because it's too expensive. So I'm an open book when it comes to discussing this with anybody that is willing to learn a little bit how best to do this.
Yeah, you are totally not high pressure at all. I can absolutely vouch for that. And you may see a 415 Bay Area area code on Octavio's number. That's only because he lived in the Bay Area, but now he lives down here in San Diego. So he's he's definitely local, but he can help anybody throughout the state. And that's why he has a 415 number. We all keep our numbers now forever. But I just want to thank you, Octavio, and as always, not only for joining me today, but also for all your help over the last months in helping new employees and just getting the ball rolling for us. So I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, Philippe. Thanks for setting this up today.
All right. Have an excellent day, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Take care.